In today's episode, won't get off the train? Well, suit yourself. I know IT better than IT. The cheeseburger bacon burger all-inclusive hotel fiasco. So let's get started. Won't get off the train? Well, suit yourself. A few years ago, I was working as a conductor for a local train company. As we were about to leave a station, a warning was issued that something was wrong with the train's signal transmitter. As per protocol, the passengers was asked to leave the train and move on to a replacement bus. Now, it was kind of late, around 7 or 8 p.m., and there was maybe about 20 people on board, so we didn't think much of it. About 10 minutes pass, and as I'm making my way to the back of the train to check a control panel, I notice a man still sitting in one of the seats in the last cart. I stop, a little confused, and I say, "Excuse me, sir, but perhaps you didn't hear before, the train is dash." The man, not even looking up from his phone, tells me, "Yeah, I heard you." Me, now actually confused, pause for a bit and then say, "Well, sir, you'll have to leave the train." Him, "I'm sure we'll be moving again soon." Me, "Sir, that doesn't matter, no passengers are allowed to stay on the train." Him, "Look, girly, condescending AF I might add, I'm not getting off this train just so you and your lazy friends up there," he points at the camera in the corner, "can have a break." As he spoke, he got up from his seat. This man was probably in his late 40s, easily 6 feet 5 inches and 240 pounds, towering over my 5 feet 4 inches 21 years old skinny ass. I knew he was trying to intimidate me to leave, but since the cameras was on and he'd even pointed them out himself, I found it hard to believe he'd actually do something. So I pressed on. "Me, sir, I am asking you politely to step off this train." He huffed at me and sat back down, without answering. "Me, sir?" Nah, he just grunted at me. By this point, I'm getting frustrated and tired with this big gut. I muster my sternest look and voice and try one last time. "Sir, the train is not going to move and you are not allowed to be on it." Him, "I said I'm not FING moving. Are you really this dumb? Just shut TF up and don't tell me anything unless it's that we're at the next station." "Well, alright." I paint on my costumer's smile and tell him with a sugary voice, "Alright, sir, I will." And I hear him mutter under his breath as I leave. I tell my co-worker what happened, and he freaks out at first, but as we are not allowed to forcibly remove passengers ourselves, and the nearest security guard is 45 minutes away, I tell him to leave the situation to me. He reluctantly agrees. 20 minutes pass and the signal transmitter error is solved. We get permission to move and are told to go back to our starting station to wait for our next scheduled trip. This of course meaning we're turning around and not continuing our planned route. It doesn't take long from when we leave the station that there's a knock on my door. I know it's the man, but as he can't see into my cabin, I don't answer the door. A few more knocks, and then he leaves. The trip back to our starting station takes about 45 minutes, and I call ahead to have a security guard waiting there for us. As we approach the station, I find the man pacing in the hallways, and I can tell he is absolutely furious. I'm trying so hard not to laugh out loud at his fat, tomato-red face. "Me, sir, we are nearing the next station." Him, trembling over his word in anger, "This is not my FING station." I look him dead in the eye with a fake, very overly done, confused face as the train pulls up to the platform and I can see the guard through the window. "Well, no sir, you told me not to talk to you unless it was to tell you when we were at the next station. This is the next station. We are here. So I'm telling you." The man was visibly shaking at this point. He was spitting out words that I couldn't apprehend. When the security guard tapped him on the shoulder and asked him to step off, he exploded in a fit of rage, which ultimately ended with the police escorting him off the premises. I reckon it took him a very hefty amount of unnecessary cash and time to get to his destination after that, while I was left with a very amusing story to tell my coworkers, until I quit like 2 weeks later. I know IT better than IT. So a few years back, I was working in a manufacturing company as IT manager. Like many industries, we had a number of machines with embedded computer systems. For the sake of convenience, we called these production machines because they produce stuff. By and large, these PCs are just normal desktop PCs that have a bunch of data acquisition cards in them connected to a PLC, or a second network card connected to an Ethernet-capable PLC. Invariably, these PCs are purchased and configured when this production machine is being commissioned, and then just left as is until the production machine is retired. In some cases, this can be as long as 20 years. Please bear in mind that this is 20 years inside a dusty, hot factory environment. I've been in manufacturing environments before, and this concept is not new to me. Thanks to a number of poignant lessons in the past, I make it my business to understand these PCs inside and out. I like to keep them on a tight refresh cycle, or when it's not practical, in the case of archaic hardware or software, keep as many spares as possible. Also, regular backups are important. You just have to understand that unlike a normal PC, it can be difficult to do and plan it well in advance. More often than not, these PCs aren't IT's responsibility, they fall under engineering or facilities. Even so, these guys understand that IT runs just about every other PC in the business, and welcome any advice or assistance that IT can provide. Finally, these PCs are usually tightly integrated into a production machine, and failure of the PC means the machine stops. And so we have today's stars. Airzone, me, the new IT manager. Too expensive, the site's facilities manager. He's in charge of the maintenance of the site, including all of these production machines. He's super paranoid about people trying to take his job, so he guards all his responsibilities jealously, and doesn't communicate anything lest they get the drop on his efforts. Oh, and he has a fixation about not spending company money, even to the point of shafting the lawn mowing guy out of a few hours' pay, hence the name. VPO, Vice President of Operations. The factory boss. No nonsense sort of guy. Old boy, we'll get to him, but his name is derived from being a man in his 70s. I'm new, but in my first few weeks I've already had a number of run-ins with Too Expensive. I'm a fairly relaxed guy, but I have no qualms about letting someone dig their own grave and fall into it, and in the case of Too Expensive, I'd be happy to lend him my shovel. My pet hate was when organizing new network drops. I will always run a double when we needed a single. We're paying working at heights money already, and a double drop is material cost only. i.e. adding $50 to $100 material on a $4,000 single drop cost. He'd invariably countermand all my orders and insist on singles. And then a few weeks/months later, I'd have the Sparky in again to install the second drop at another $4,000. And then there was the time that he was getting shirty, because I was holding up a project of his. Well, sorry, if you are running a project that requires 12 to 16 network ports, you'd better at least talk to the IT guys prior to the day of installation. Not only will you not have drops, you won't have switch ports. And if you didn't budget for them, or advise far enough in advance that I could, then you can wait until I get around to it. Failure to plan is not an emergency. So you could see that we didn't exactly gel together well. Which brings us to these production machines, and the PCs nested within. Every attempt for me to try and document, or even understand them was shut down by Too Expensive. Me, hardware and software specifications. Too expensive, that's my job, get lost. Me, startup and shutdown procedures. Too expensive, that's my job, get lost. Me, backup. Too expensive, that's my job, get lost. Me, emergency contacts. Too expensive, that's my job, get lost. You get the picture. It resulted in a strong and terse email from Too Expensive to leave it alone. He had all the documentation, contacts, backups, and didn't need, or want my meddling, and I was not to touch any production machine's PC under any circumstance. Move forward a few months and I'm helping one of the factory workers on their area's shared PC. It's located right next to one of these production machines. It's old. The machine itself was nearly an antique, but the control system had been recently upgraded. It had coax network of 2 PCs, one NT4 primary domain controller, and a NT4 workstation, and a network PLC, also on coax. The machines were Pentiums running the minimum specs for NT4 to run, with a control application whose application logic was configured entirely through a proprietary database. I had actually seen this software in a different company, so I had some basic familiarity with it. The coax was terminated on a hub with a few Cat5 ports on it to connect to our LAN, and an old HP LaserJet printer. These particular production machines are rare, only a few of them exist in the world. We bought this one from a company that had gone out of business a few years earlier. It was test and tag day and too expensive was running around a Sparky to do the testing. My earlier instruction to the Sparky was to not disconnect any computer equipment if it was not powered off. And so it came time to test this production machine's PC. The Sparky wasn't going to touch it while it was on. Luckily Too Expensive came prepared with his thoroughly documented shutdown procedure: yank the power cords. The test passed, new labels were applied to the power cord, he plugged it back in and turned it back on, then ran off to his next conquest without waiting for the boot to finish. 10 minutes later, the machine operator starts grumbling. I have a quick peek, and see that the control software had started, but the screen was garbled and none of the right measurements were showing. Too Expensive is called over, and he talked one look, pales, and then runs off. 10 minutes later, the operator looks at me and asks for help. I call Too Expensive's mobile, and it's off. I called VPO's mobile and suggest that he comes over immediately. 10 minutes later, the operator, VPO, and I are looking at this machine. It's F*KED. There's the better part of $1 million worth of product to be processed by this machine, and the nearest alternate machine is in Singapore, belonging to a different company. And if the processing isn't done within soon, the product will expire and be scrapped. 40% of revenue is from product processed by this machine. We're F*KED. 10 minutes later, we still can't get onto Too Expensive. We can't talk to him about the backups or any emergency contacts that he knows about. We can't even get his phone to ring. So as I have said, I have used this software before, and have a basic understanding. I know enough that the configuration is everything, and configuration is matched to the machine. But I also knew a guy who did some of the implementations. A call to him gave me a lead, and I followed the leads until about 4 calls later, I had the guy who implemented this particular machine. Old boy had retired 10 years earlier, but VPO had persuaded him to come out of retirement for an eye-watering sum of money. A few hours later, old boy took one look at the machine and confirmed that the database was F*KED. We'd need to restore it from backup. Too Expensive is still not contactable. Me, let's assume for a moment that there is no backup. What do we need to do? Old boy, normally I'd say pray, but you must have done that already because I haven't kicked the bucket yet. To cut a long story short, we had to rebuild the database. But not from scratch. Old boy's MO was when setting up a machine, when he was done, he'd create and store a backup database on the machine. The only issue was that 20 years of machine updates needed to be worked out. It also just so happens that through sheer effort, I am able to compare a corrupted database file to a good one, and fool with it enough to get it to load in the configuration editor. It's still mangled, but we are able to use that as a reference to build the lost config. All up, it took 4 days to bring this machine back online. But we did. To be honest, I certainly wasn't capable of doing this solo, and without my efforts to patch the corrupted database file, old boy would not have been able to restore 20 years of patches that we had no documentation for. And what of Too Expensive? After old boy and I started working on the problem, he showed up again. He ignored any advice about a backup, because obviously there wasn't any, and instead demanded regular status updates for him to report to VPO. The little sh*T had screwed up the machine, run off to hide, and now a solution was in progress, was trying to claim the credit. When it was all running again, old boy debriefed VPO on the solution. I then had my turn with VPO. VPO, so air zone. Thanks for your help. Your efforts have unfucked us. Me, no worries. VPO, and now we get to the unpleasant bit. Too Expensive claims that you didn't follow procedure when shutting down the machine, causing it to crash. He also claims that you hadn't taken any backups, and it was effectively your fault. Me, and when we tried to call him? VPO, he claims he was busy contacting his emergency contacts. Me, I see. VPO, I don't believe a word of that shit. Unfortunately, it's your word versus his. If I had the evidence, I'd fire him. Me, opening the email Too Expensive had sent me about meddling on my phone, you mean this evidence? Half an hour later, I got the call to lock Too Expensive's account and disabled his access card. The Cheeseburger Bacon Burger All-Inclusive Hotel Fiasco. So to start off, this isn't my story, it's my husband's malicious compliance. Posted with his permission. I promise this 100% did happen. Time-wise, it happened 10 years ago, in a cheap all-inclusive hotel in Ibiza. My husband was on his stag-do bachelor party for any US peeps with a group of pals. There were 8 guys, and they did the whole trip on the cheap. A 2-star all-you-can-eat and drink hotel that cost a crazily low amount of money. So basically, service was never going to be exceptional. The incident takes place at the poolside burger bar, where there were staff on hand cooking up burgers throughout the day. The menu was limited specifically, you could opt for either a cheeseburger or a bacon burger. My husband, being the rebel that he is, decides that what he really fancied was a cheese and bacon burger. He approached the counter and asked very politely, if you don't mind, can I have a cheeseburger with bacon? The man behind the counter is incredulous, like this question has never been asked before. A cheese and bacon burger, he says, not possible. We only serve cheese or bacon burgers. At this point my husband starts to see red. This is an all-inclusive hotel, he can literally have 10 of each type of each burger for free, but they won't combine the two. He points this out to the burger man, who angrily sticks to his guns. Yes sir, you can have multiple burgers, but you cannot have a cheese and bacon burger. Well, I'm pretty sure at this point you can all guess where this story is heading. Okay, says hubby, then I'll take 1 cheeseburger and 1 bacon burger. Man cooks them and passes them over. Very slowly, and quite deliberately, my husband makes a show of opening both burgers on the countertop. He slowly removes the bacon, and places it on top of the cheese and the cheeseburger. He closes the bun, picks up his now bacon and cheeseburger, and calmly walks away, leaving a now plain hamburger on the countertop. At this point, burger guy is incensed. My husband told me that at the time, he honestly thought the guy was going to lean over the counter and punch him in the face, that's how angry he looked. As my husband is walking away, he screams after him, you cannot do that. To which my husband replies, I think I just did. Every time we eat burgers, myself and hubby end up laughing our heads off at the story of the most dramatic burger he ever ate. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.